There are exactly 7 phrases that will make a narcissist pull back from you, like you just held up a spiritual charm against a dark force. The real power behind these phrases isn't that they're cruel or hurtful, it's that they're honest. And narcissists, above everything else, are terrified of the truth. Let's be completely honest about something here. Most people fail and fail badly when they try to stand up to a narcissist. Why does this keep happening? Because they willingly step into a battlefield the narcissist has already chosen. Armed with tools that don't just fail to help, they actually make the other side stronger. You show up with your emotions, your sense of fairness, and your hope for peace and understanding. But none of that builds closeness in their world. To them, those things are just weaknesses waiting to be used. What you're really doing is trying to reason with a hurricane. It's a pointless effort from the start. The basic mistake is this. You believe you're having a normal conversation, but you're actually caught in a psychological battle. The narcissist has built a false version of reality, one where they are always the noble victim at the center of everything. And in that same version of reality, you're painted as the broken, silly, endlessly indebted supporting character. Every emotional outburst from you, whether it's anger, sadness, or pleading, is you unknowingly agreeing to play by their rules. You're validating their distorted world just by staying inside it, and on that ground, they always win. The real shift in power happens the second you stop reacting and start responding instead. A reaction is an explosive, uncontrolled release, the sudden flinch, the yelling, the emotional blow-up. A response is calm, deliberate, and rooted in decision. It's the conscious act of throwing their false map into the fire and standing firmly on what you know is actually true. This is where your words become your sharpest tool, not as a weapon to strike them down, but as the material you use to build a version of reality so solid that their illusions can't shatter it. To really understand why this works, you have to look deeper. You need to understand what actually fuels narcissism at its core. Underneath the confidence, the bragging, and the performance, what is a narcissist truly afraid of? It's not your anger, and it's not your logic. It's simply the fear of being found out. Their whole identity is a wall built, piece by exhausting piece, around a hidden core of deep shame and inadequacy. It's a dazzling, glittering fortress designed to hide a frightened, wounded person underneath. This isn't an excuse for their behavior, not even close. It's simply a crucial insight for how you approach them. Their biggest fear is that someone will spot the cracks in that fortress or catch a glimpse of the painful truth they've worked so hard to bury. They live in constant dread of truly being seen. That's exactly why certain words, said clearly and without hostility, act like psychological triggers. These words don't smash the fortress. They simply shine a light on it. They act like a mirror. And in that mirror, the narcissist is forced to face not the perfect image they've built of themselves, but the blurry shape of the fraud they secretly fear they are. This is the deepest layer of their shame. They're not scared you'll hurt them physically. They're scared you'll see who they really are, and that being seen will destroy the illusion they need in order to keep existing. I want you to really sit with this for a second. Pause and think it over carefully. Has there ever been a moment when you said something to a difficult person and they suddenly backed off and you weren't even sure why it worked? Maybe you were just exhausted by all the drama. Maybe you had nothing left to argue with, so you said something plain and direct, and just like that, the chaos stopped. There's a reason behind that. A deep psychological truth. I want you to think back to moments like that in your own life. As we go further into this, ask yourself exactly what you said, what tone you used, and what happened next. You may have stumbled onto this principle before without even realizing it. This brings us to the idea of verbal boundaries. Let's make this very clear. Setting a boundary through your words is not aggression. Aggression is trying to control or hurt someone else. What we're talking about, assertive honesty, is an act of self-control. It's the flat refusal to let someone else define your reality for you. Picture it like a property line. Aggression is stepping onto your neighbor's land. Setting a boundary is simply standing on your own ground and saying calmly and firmly that this line cannot be crossed. The phrases themselves, which we'll get to soon, are only part of what makes this work. Your tone and delivery are what give them their real strength. A boundary shouted in anger isn't really a boundary at all. It's an invitation to fight. It tells the other person you're still playing on the field of raw emotion, and the narcissist will happily meet you there. But a boundary spoken with the calm, unshakable certainty of a simple fact is something their mind can't process easily. It's like trying to divide by zero. It breaks the rules they've always relied on. Your quiet confidence becomes a mirror that reflects their chaos back at them, and that's something they cannot bear to look at. So what happens once you learn to do this well? What's the real transformation waiting on the other side of this fear? It's not just about handling one difficult relationship better. It's about a deep shift in who you are. The respect you'll start receiving from others, and especially from the narcissist, isn't something they hand you out of kindness. It's something that shows up naturally as a direct result of your own self-respect. You stop being a pawn in their game simply because you've decided to stop playing altogether. You move from being just a character inside their story to becoming the true author of your own, and that right there is where real strength comes from. Here's something that might be uncomfortable to hear at first. Narcissists don't disrespect you because you're weak. They disrespect you because they can sense that you have something they desperately want, but can never actually possess real, genuine self-worth. And that terrifies them. When a narcissist chooses a target, it's never random cruelty. It's a calculated hunting instinct, sharpened over a lifetime of chasing exactly what they're missing inside. Picture a pack of predators out in the wild. They don't just attack whichever animal happens to be closest. They watch, they test, and they search for a very specific mix of traits. And contrary to what you might think, they're usually not drawn to the weakest ones in the group. More often, they're drawn to the strongest, the ones full of life, because that's where the biggest reward lies for them. So, what is it about you that makes you so attractive to a manipulator? First, and most of all, it's your empathy, your ability to feel deeply, to understand others, and to give people the benefit of the doubt. That's something completely foreign to a narcissist, but it's something they know exactly how to take advantage of. They don't see your empathy as strength. They see it as an open door into your life. Your competence is another big signal to them. You're good at what you do. You have real skills, you have discipline, and you produce real results. That competence becomes something they want to seize and claim as their own to prop up their fantasy of greatness. And finally, there's your integrity, your basic goodness, your loyalty to the truth, and your drive to do the right thing. This pulls them in more than almost anything else. Because you're honest, you naturally assume other people are honest too. Because you're conscientious, it's hard for you to even imagine someone acting with no conscience at all. Your strength becomes surprisingly the very thing used against you. And that's the cruel twist at the heart of this whole dynamic. The very light inside you is exactly what pulls the darkness toward you. The narcissist looks at your wholeness, your genuine ability to care, and everything you've accomplished, and it becomes both something they deeply envy and something they want to tear down. They want to feed off your light, and if they can't have it, they want to snuff it out completely so it stops reminding them of the emptiness inside themselves. Once they've chosen their target, the testing starts. Understand that these early moves are never obvious attacks. They're quiet probes, small psychological tests meant to measure how you'll respond. It could be a small, backhanded compliment. It could be a promise that gets conveniently forgotten. It could be a joke aimed at you, sharp enough to sting, but light enough that if you push back, you're the one who can't take a joke. Every one of these moments is a tiny experiment. The narcissist is silently asking whether you'll tolerate this, and whether they can get away with it. Your reaction, or the absence of one, is the information they're gathering. If you brush it off, make excuses for them, or let it slide just to keep things calm, you've just handed them exactly what they needed. You've shown them the path straight to your limits, and based on that, they will absolutely push further. The forgotten promise turns into a fully broken agreement. The sarcastic joke becomes a humiliating comment made in front of others. It's a slow, deliberate invasion of your personal space, one step at a time. This is the key difference between a normal disagreement between two people and the calculated disrespect of a narcissist. In a healthy relationship, conflict happens naturally and gets worked through with honest communication. Both people listen and both people adjust. With a narcissist, though, this isn't conflict at all. It's a campaign. It's a slow wearing down of your standards, one small, disrespectful act at a time, until one day you realize you're standing somewhere you swore you'd never allow. This gradual escalation is what we can call the disrespect cycle, and it's one of the most damaging forms of psychological manipulation there is. It always begins with something small. You feel a flash of annoyance or a quick sense that something's unfair, but you choose to let it go. Why do you do that? Because you're a genuinely kind person. You don't want to make a big deal out of something that feels minor in the moment. But here's the thing, that small thing you just accepted quietly becomes the new baseline for the whole relationship. The next violation will be a bit bigger, and the one after that, bigger still. The narcissist needs you to keep accepting this pattern because it serves something essential for them. It keeps reinforcing their distorted sense of reality. In their mind, they deserve special treatment, and your silence in the face of their disrespect becomes your quiet agreement to that belief. Bit by bit, you're being trained to accept things that should never be accepted. Every time you don't hold your ground, that ground shifts further behind you. And what's genuinely disturbing is just how fast a person can adapt to this. The human mind is built to adjust to its surroundings, but that very strength can be turned against you. When disrespect is steady and gradual, it can start to feel like just normal life. Being constantly on edge, tiptoeing around someone, managing their unpredictable moods day after day, that becomes your baseline. You forget what it even felt like to be treated with basic decency. What was once abnormal has quietly become your new normal. So why do kind, thoughtful, conscientious people so often fail to notice this happening right in front of them? The main reason is that the very traits that make you a good person are working against you here. Your desire for peace, your instinct to smooth things over, your habit of seeing the good in people, all of it becomes a serious liability in this situation. You end up projecting your own good nature onto them. You tell yourself they couldn't have meant it that way or that they're just having a hard time. You slip into a kind of self-deception because the truth is too painful to face. The idea that this person is deliberately and repeatedly disrespecting you is simply too hard to accept, and that leads straight into a deep, corrosive self-doubt. You start questioning your own perception, wondering if maybe you're just too sensitive or overreacting. This is the narcissist's most powerful trick of all. They want you to believe the real problem isn't their behavior, but your reaction to it. Slowly, you become an unreliable witness to your own life. But eventually, there's always a turning point. It might be one act of disrespect so blatant, so undeniable, that it instantly cuts through all the confusion and self-doubt. It's the moment when the full weight of every small violation added together finally becomes too much to carry. It's a moment of sharp, almost frightening clarity when the whole pattern finally comes into focus, and you know with a certainty that chills you that something has to change, and that change starts with you, not them. What I'm about to give you now aren't insults, and they're not personal attacks. They're precise tools built on truth. When you use these phrases, you're not trying to wound them. You're simply stating what's real. And for a narcissist, reality is the single most dangerous weapon there is. The first phrase is simply, "I see what you're doing." There may be no sentence more frightening to a manipulator than this one. Why? Because their entire strategy depends completely on being able to deny their real intentions. They thrive in vagueness and confusion. They love the subtle jab, the small put down, the innocent question crafted to plant doubt in your mind. These are their favorite tools precisely because they're easy to walk back if challenged. They can say you misread them or accuse you of being overly sensitive, but the phrase, "I see what you're doing," cuts straight through all of that fog like a bright light. It's a clear signal that you're not fooled. You're not a piece being moved around on their board. You're watching the whole game unfold. You're pulling the curtain back and revealing the small, insecure person pulling the levers. This phrase needs no explanation attached to it. You don't have to spell out exactly what you see. The power comes entirely from the fact that it's left open. It tells them clearly that the game is over and that you know their every move. In that instant, the balance of power shifts for good. You've stripped away their greatest weapon, the mask of innocence. They're exposed. And being exposed is a narcissist's deepest fear of all. The second phrase is, "That's not my responsibility." The narcissist is an expert at pushing responsibility onto everyone but themselves. Their mistakes, their bad moods, their messy lives, somehow none of it is ever their fault. They insist it's because of something you did, some support you failed to give, some need of theirs you didn't anticipate. They load you up with the weight of their own emotional and practical messes and expect you to carry it silently. What the phrase "that's not my responsibility" does is place that weight right back where it belongs. It's a bold act of boundary setting. It draws a firm, unmistakable line around what is yours to own. It says plainly that you'll take responsibility for your own actions and feelings, and they need to take full responsibility for theirs. This will feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're someone who genuinely likes helping people. That instinct to help is natural for you. But you have to learn the real difference between actually helping someone and simply enabling them. Carrying their emotional weight for them isn't help, it's enabling. When you stop taking on responsibility for their issues, you're not being cruel. You're forcing them, maybe for the first time in their life, to actually face the consequences of their own choices. That's a kind of freedom for you, and in a strange, difficult way for them too.